Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with Brad Jacobs. I should say the Brad Jacobs, Executive Chairman of XPO, Chairman of RXO, GXO. I think that you've created now 7 companies. Is that right, Brad?
If you include the 2 spins, yes.
The 2 spins, and you've just written how to make a few $1 billion. And I was reading you've, I think, made $55 billion for shareholders. So you make it sound so easy. Let me start with, who did you write this book for?
I wrote this book for people who want to accomplish big things in life.
Yeah.
Whether that's in business or whether that's in personal life. And how to rearrange your brain, which is the name of the first chapter, to get yourself in the right mindset, to think big and to be focused. And for CEOs in particular who want to learn what I've learned over the last 44 years.
When somebody makes $55 billion for shareholders, there's a certain feeling that it's an innate gift versus a learned gift. What do you think can be learned, and what do you think's innate? Especially because part of what you write about is creating these, killer teams as well.
Well, some of it is innate. Some people are born leaders, some people are not born leaders. But if you put people in the right circumstances and you train them and give them exposure to other people and show them how it's done, people can grow a lot. So, for example, I have broken up XPO into 3 companies.
Yeah.
RXO, which is the tech-forward freight brokerage platform. GXO, which is the largest pure-play warehouse company in the world, supply chain company. And XPO, which is an LTL company, less than truckload carrier. And each one of those has a CEO who was on my team over the years. And I think if you asked any of them 7, 8 years ago, do you think you're going to be CEO of a public company? So, nah, I'm not going to be CEO of a public company. But they all are. And the reason they are is they were part of a group that shared information with each other, shared best practices, taught each other, saw how it was done, and grew and matured. So I think a lot of it is being in an environment and learning. Some of it is learning.
I feel like I'm going to skate all over the place here, but I immediately think of the section where you talk about A, B, and C players, which is different than how people might think about it. How do you think about it? How do you identify those A, B, and C?
Well, as I write in the book, I do look at people on the team as A, B, or C players. And the way I look at it is...
Do they know who they are?
Yes, because if they're C players, they're not there forever.
Okay.
If they're B players, trying to turn them into A players. I look at it as, I imagine in my mind, Diane, the person comes into my office and says, Brad, this is not a negotiation, it's just information to let you know, I quit. I've already got another job, I bought another house, it's done deal, don't give me a counter offer, I'm leaving. And then I say, well, how would I feel if I did that? If I imagine myself feeling, yes, I was going to fire that person anyways, but I didn't have the guts to do it, and I was postponing it, and fantastic. Won't have to pay severance. They're going, this is a C player.
Right.
If my reaction to them quitting is, well, I would have preferred them not to quit, but it's not the end of the world. We'll hire a headhunter, we'll do a search, and we'll find someone as good, maybe better. That's a B. If my reaction to them coming in and saying I quit is, oh my God, we are so screwed. We are never going to get a person as fantastic as Diane. And I can't even hear what you're telling me because I'm just in a panic mode. I'm in complete confusion because I'm lost. I'm never going to get someone as good as you. That's an A player. And what's important is to think about that. All the relationships you have in the company, who are your A players? And make darn sure you do not lose an A player.
Right. You don't strike me as somebody who has things done to you. Like, you would never have somebody come in. You would get rid of that person probably before they come in and quit that job. But
well, I'm a human.
You're a human, but
nobody likes firing people. If they do that, they're not necessarily a nice person.
Well, and that's very true. Let me go back. I did mention at the start that you have started 7 companies. Are you done yet?
No.
Okay, so there's an 8th company that you're looking. Okay.
I'm very actively right now looking at other industries to do the same old things I've done for 44 years.
Well, so let's talk about those same, because I go back, one of the things that intrigues me always is the background that people have. And you studied music and math.
Yeah.
What intrigued you about that?
Well, music and math both played a big role in developing my approach to life. So the math is obvious. numbers, analytical thinking, rational, objective. The music may not be so intuitive to people, but it's been a big influence in my life. And I write about in the book how my most important professor in school was a musician called Bill Dixon. May he rest in peace. He was a very famous jazz musician. He didn't like the word jazz. He called it black music, but we would call it jazz. And Bill taught me a lot of stuff. He taught me a lot of stuff about music. He taught me a lot of stuff about life. About music, what he taught me was you have to improvise, that nothing is a wrong note. If someone goes on
Ergo jazz.
There you go. If
Yeah.
someone goes on a wrong note, that's not a wrong note. That's the new note. And we got to move with that. We have to make that into a positive thing, not a negative thing. And the other thing he taught me was you're not playing by yourself. You're playing in a group, in a team, with other people. And you need to be paying attention to all those people. As much as you're paying attention to yourself, you need to be completely inward and at the same time paying attention to how you're relating to your other team members, your group members. This is the same thing in business. In business, you have to pay attention to what you're in charge of, what you're doing. But you can't be just lost inside yourself. You have to be paying attention to how you're relating to other people and how they're doing and what they're doing. And all that interactivity is really important. And in life, what Bill told me, and I spent quite a few pages talking about this in the book, is there came a point in time about, 10 or so years after I'd left Bennington College, where I'd met Bill, where I had done well in business, and I had this big fancy apartment in New York, and he wanted to crash because he had a gig in New York, so I invited him to stay at my apartment.
That's a professor who really likes you.
And I loved him.
Yeah.
And he came, and I'm showing him looking out the view of the 30th floor of Olympic Tower, and I thought he was going to be really impressed. And he looked at me and he said, you're really wasting your life. You could have been a really good musician. You could have really contributed something to the world of music, and here you are chasing money, like for what? So it dawned on me that chasing money, while fun and interesting and has advantages, is not the only thing in life. There's a lot of other parts of life. So I learned a lot about music.
What do you chase then? Because obviously you've made a lot of money, so that part, if you were chasing money, that is success. How do you define success?
That's for each person. That's not.
But I'm asking you personally.
Oh, for myself.
Yeah.
For me, success is personal and it's professional. In professional, I measure it on creating great companies where lots of people succeed and many, many people make lots of money, and especially the shareholders. And if you look at each one of my companies, while they're in different industries, something's very similar about all of them.
$1 billion plus.
What's similar about all of them is the creation of dramatic shareholder value. That one share of the company at day one was worth a lot more by year 5 and year 10, and sometimes outrageously so. So if you look at XPO, the people who invested with me at the very, very beginning made 32 times their money when they sold with me last year, majority of our shares. If you look at United Rentals, people got in at $3.50 a share when I started it, and today that stock is about $435 a share, so over 100 times. So to me, success in business is many, many things, but it must include, and it's different for different people, but,
right.
But it must include creating shareholder value. Other than that, you're kidding yourself. On a personal level, for me, success is creating happiness. Creating happiness for the people I love and the people I care for and the people I lead. So whether they're in my company, whether they're my family, whether they're my friends, the people I care about in life. And as I grow older, that who I care about expands.
Oh, really?
Natural.
That's interesting. I often think that sometimes it can shrink, but you're right. It can expand that desire to give back, you mean, really?
Yeah, and particularly in my life where I'm running global businesses and we're doing business in dozens of countries and traveling around a lot. I just meet a lot of people. And you see a lot of different cultures and a lot of folks.
Well, Brad, I want to ask, timing is everything. There's a lot of confident people, a lot of people who do study the art of management. You've had, especially when you're starting companies, there's a serendipity factor to knowing the environment and seeing the opportunity. What would you say about the timing when you think about your strengths in that area, knowing when to shift focus, start something new? Because that to me would be one of the hardest things to do as a leader.
It is, But starting a business is like starting a family when you're a young couple. And is there ever a good time to?
Most people don't start 7.
Well, but most people, when you're having kids, there really is no perfect time to have kids.
Right.
It's you have a career or you have commitments or whatever, but you just do it and you figure it out. That's been the approach I've had for starting businesses. I don't try to time the cycle just perfectly, so I'm starting it at the very lowest part of the cycle of the economy bottomed out and the stock market bottomed out, because pretty much in any part of the cycle, starting a business, if you do it well, and if you do it with great people and you have a good strategy, you execute with precision, you'll do well.
But then there's also doing the right thing for too long, right? So you have to know when to sort of pivot and shift.
I pivot and shift when I get bored. It's an intuitive.
So
if I
you
get
have a
bored,
gut
I move
feel.
on.
Blink. It's sort of well. I want to get to the last part of the book where you talk about killing your competitors. No. You're right.
Let's be precise.
No one.
How to create a culture where you're killing the competition instead of killing each other.
Okay.
Preferably,
No
of course,
competitors will die. No competitors
will
die.
Yes.
Figuratively. When you've seen where do most people fail? I know that's actually probably a perhaps too harsh a word, but when the competition makes mistakes, are there classic mistakes you've seen that you think you can spot the vulnerabilities? I mean, you talk about excellence in this book. It's a book about, but yet your competition is aspiring to the same thing. So where do you find most people fall short when you're head to head with them?
I think there's a bunch of categories of where any company falls short. The first of which is strategy. You just have the wrong plan. You're making
if they have a plan at all sometimes.
Or and they're making a gamble, a bet, a speculation based on a premise that turns out to be wrong. So getting the fundamental trend is very critical to success. That solves a lot of problems, even if you make a lot of errors. If you're on the right end of the right side of the trend, that's going to bail you out. But you can't be just sizing up a trend. You also have to create a company that's got fantastic people, as many A players as possible.
Yeah.
And I define fantastic in the book as people who are super smart, hungry, and can work together as a team, and honest. And if they have those 4 traits, then I want that person. I want that person on the team. And I don't want anybody who's got just 1 or 2 or 3 of those traits. I want people to have all 4 of those traits. So if you can get together a team of people who have all those characteristics, and then if you can create a culture where people feel safe to present different views, opposing views, and also get in the habit of not having rigid thinking.
Yeah. Being
able to be open-minded to change your views, change your opinions. If facts change or if your thinking evolves, you can accomplish great stuff.
Let's talk about some of the habits you have. We can talk about the strength, but one of the habits, you have a whole section on meetings. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy of meetings.
Well, thank you for pointing that out. There is one whole chapter on how to run an electric meeting.
Right.
And in most companies, meetings are a waste of time, in my opinion, because it's somebody getting up there with a PowerPoint presentation, giving a speech, people on their phones, people talking to each other, people not hearing most. It's a waste of time. You might as well just send that out as a pre-read, which is what we do. If the PowerPoints are fine, they should be read by people privately, not by someone up on stage reading it to everybody else. Then what we do is we have inclusive meetings in terms of setting the agenda. I don't set the agenda. I contribute to the agenda, but I empower everyone who's coming to that meeting to submit 2 things: what their biggest takeaways were from reading all the pre-reads and anything else they want to contribute to the purpose of that meeting, the topic of that meeting. And secondly, what's a question or 2 that they think is important enough for everyone to discuss and use our precious time together. And then we redistribute those, we vote on those on the app, scale of 1 to 10, and that's the agenda of the meeting. We go over from starting with the ones that were ranked as high and keep going until the time is up. This is a powerful way to do a meeting because it's not someone else setting the agenda. It's everyone in that meeting deciding what's important to do. But it can't stop there. It also has to be the rules of the meeting. And I don't have a lot of rules, but I got some rules. One rule is one person speaks at a time, and only one person speaks at a time.
It's like passing the conch.
Yes.
Minus the Lord
Yes.
of the Flies, right?
Yes. And everyone has to give the attention of all their 100 billion brain cells to that one person. And people have to watch and listen very, very carefully, and not just listen and watch carefully, but non-judgmentally. People have to keep an attitude of respectfulness, and you can't fake that. It has to be genuine. It has to be cultivate an attitude of, I really want to hear your opinion, and I want to hear her opinion. I want to hear his opinion. And maybe after I hear their opinions, you know what? I may change my opinion. That is a wonderful meeting. That's one of respectfulness. That's one where you really are solving problems. You're solving problems and leaving that meeting with work streams that make big changes in the company and big improvements in the company and help you to create a few $1 billion.
Well, you talk about being 44 years. How do you manage differently now? Because this is cumulative knowledge than you did when you were starting out. You know, you gave us the image of your professor saying, you know, you're could have been a great jazz musician. But when you think about, has much changed, or is there anything when you think about particular techniques that you have learned that you wish you'd known 40 years ago?
Thousands of things. So yes, I learned every day, every year, and I recognize the things where I'm failing and where I can improve, and that's a good thing. Be aware of where the defects are. I guess I've changed a few fundamental things in particular, like compensation. So I used to be a little cheaper on compensation, a little more frugal on compensation, and then over the years I decided, you know what really works well is if I err on the side of overcompensating people and let people make lots and lots of money, only if it's tied to results. But if they perform and if they deliver results and if they help contribute to the success of the company, darn it, let them make a lot of money and let a lot of people make a lot of money. And that's the main reason people come to work. If people are honest and you say, well, why do you have a job? Why? It's because of this, because this. But the main reason is you want to make money for yourself and the people you love. That's why people are coming in. They're not coming in to please me or to help me to accomplish things. They're coming because they have goals that they want achieved, and a lot of it is financial. So you know what? Let them make a lot of money. So that's a big learning I had over the years. I learned that from a guy called Dick Colburn, who passed away years ago. I bought a company from him in California called U.S. Rentals, and it was a large company, and he was an interesting fellow. He had been married 10 times to 9 different wives. One wife he married twice. And
the Liz Taylor of logistics.
Yeah, kind of Liz Taylor logistics, the good one. And like I generally do with people who are successful, who I have the fortune to meet, I asked him, so what's your secrets? How'd you build up this enormous company and become a multi-billionaire and everything? And he told me it was about a few things, but it was mainly about compensation. And it was about tying compensation to performance and letting people make a lot of money if they perform really well. And that made a big dent on me, and I absorbed that from him.
So let's talk about the consumer, the aspirational, the young, the whether they're in college, maybe they're just starting out, but they don't have the luxury to be designing their own meetings yet, but they're saying, I want to be like Brad Jacobs. What's the advice? And it's kind of hard because, to your point, there's only so much you can, in a way, pass on to somebody. They have to want it, pick the right industry. But if you were to say, here's a couple of things you should think about, what would you say from this book and beyond?
I would first say read this book 10 times.
Right.
And then call me and let's go over any questions you have. Secondly, I would say...
That's an offer, right.
Secondly, I would say, because I really have put in that book...
Yeah, it's like, you can't underestimate, then you've got a lot of different advice and you intertwine it with your own experience. So it's a very reflective book.
I poured out the most important things I could tell someone of how to create a few $1 billion. What are the secrets that I've learned and are still learning and developing? And I put that in the book. And
this is teaser content.
So in the book, you'll see the first chapter is how to rearrange your brain. If I just had to pick one of the many things that I talk about in the book, chapter 1 would be that one, because how you get your mind in a good place and keep it in a good place, and when it gets out of a good place, bring it back to base as quickly as possible, is key. You're not going to be very successful in business if your mind is all over the place and if your emotions are all over the place. You need to find out how to get in the zone, whatever that is for you. You need to figure out how do you get into that calm place that's your center.
Yeah.
And you need to be aware of yourself when you're getting out of that center, and then how to bring it back into the center. For me, that's the single most important secret I can share with somebody of how do you become real successful in business is, first, get in touch with your mind, get in touch with your heart, get in touch with your spirit. And if you can get into that zone at will, and I give a few techniques and thought experiments that have worked for me, maybe others will work for other people, that's the most important thing. It's a psychological thing, if more than anything else.
So you're a man of music. If you were to have a walk-up song, I'm just curious, what would it be that would going on stage?
Probably some techno music without
Really?
any lyrics. Yeah.
Okay, so not jazz. That's interesting.
My music taste is all over the place, from classical to jazz to everything else.
When you think about education, very tempting to drop out, especially if you're somebody who is ambitious, you see an opportunity. What do you think about the role of education now? And that's an area that a lot of people are being encouraged. A lot of places don't even ask for a college degree anymore. Are we been too focused on that?
Well, I've certainly been a product of my education.
Yeah.
When I was young, I was fortunate and privileged to go to a bunch of great schools and meet a lot of great teachers. But I really took it seriously, and I really gave a lot of attention and put everything I could into my studies. But I got bored and left before I graduated. And that didn't hold me back whatsoever. So to answer your question, I think education is important. There's a lot to be learned, how to read, how to write, but more importantly, develop an attitude of just wanting to learn, wanting to know, and not thinking you know everything, because you really don't. And trying to get to new levels of knowledge, and trying to always be thinking, what's the reason behind this? What's the cause behind this? And how is this successful? And looking at other companies and other people and studying them. I my whole life I've read biographies, and I love to study other people who have been successful and learn from what's worked for them. So
since you are eyeing now your 8th company, I'd love to get, you're not going to tell us, I'm sure, but what's your view of the landscape? I think what's on your radar that you would put on ours as final thoughts? Obviously buy the book, but this is a very volatile landscape, and some people see great opportunity, some see great peril. I'm sure it's both.
Well, there is risk in the world right now. There's probably more risk than there's been in the past, because you have a lot of kind of desperate leaders that have nuclear weapons and other type of weapons. So it's a dangerous world out there. But at the same time, you have technology powering something really fantastic, which is the sharing of information with great speed and in great volume. And knowledge is what it's about. So I'm very excited about capitalizing on the trends in technology, particularly automation and AI. I was just reading this morning about these new developments in fMRIs that the computer now with AI can basically read your mind. And if I'm looking at a painting, it can reproduce that painting. If I'm listening to a song, it can reproduce that song. It knows what song I'm listening to. If I'm feeling an emotion, it can do that. And I'm thinking of all the fantastic ramifications for that in terms of business. So the technology revolution that's going on right now is unprecedented in history.
Yeah.
And in the book, I have a 2 million year history of the development inventions of technology, and they're speeding up so fast. This presents a lot of opportunities to make a lot of money.
How to make your next few $1 billion. So the book is How to Make a Few $1 billion. We are with a man who's made more than $55 billion for your shareholders alone. Brad, thanks very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm Rosemary Miller, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Blac Chyna today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So before we really jump in, what do you want to be referenced as? Blac Chyna, or are you Angela White?
Angela White.
You are Angela White.
Yes, ma'am.
So why are you choosing that name?
Well, it was given to me by birth, but mostly just for me, it's like getting back to myself, because, you know, being in the entertainment like field, everybody always calls me like, hey, Blac Chyna, Chyna. Nobody never really calls me Angela. So sometimes I would kind of like forget like who I am, because it's always like about the brand, but not about the person.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, you've gone through some major life changes in recent weeks. You've been very public about your breast reduction, your backside reduced, and getting your fillers dissolved.
yes.
Why did you choose to do it so publicly?
It just came to me. It came from God. Honestly, when I posted, I didn't even think that it was going to be as big as it was. And then by me seeing that, it made me feel like, wow, like really comfortable to even go back on the internet, because I kind of like stopped posting as much as I used to. But now like everybody has been supporting it. So I'm like, okay, this gives me like the courage to keep going and see how far I can go. So it makes me feel really good. I'm glad I did do it.
You are receiving overwhelming support.
Yeah, I didn't even, it just came to me. I didn't even think it was going to be as big as it was or is.
Yeah, everyone's really proud of you.
Yeah, thank you.
So you said it came from God. Tell me about that. I want to know about the work we're not seeing, because I know you had to do a lot of internal work as well.
Yes, and continuing to also. So on my birthday, I got baptized on my birthday. So I was reborn on my birthday, and that was May 11th of 2022. So from there, I was like, you know, just start taking the steps that I knew, which was more of the truth. You know, like what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. So that's kind of like how I've been stepping, going to church. Hi, Bishop James. Mama Menace. Going to church and just having my church family and the other people that like pray for me and pray with me, because you can't do it by yourself. You can, but it's better when you have like your church family, your prayer warriors, because there's some days where you might feel like, okay, this is like too much for me. We need to call back. I got to call back up. Like, I need the extra prayers today. So.
And what do you mean this is too much for me?
Just like life in general. Sometimes it can become like overwhelming, especially like when you're in the spotlight, and they just keep me grounded. God keeps me grounded, and they keep me grounded too, as far as like human wise. Yeah. You have like your spiritual, but then you have human form too. So both of those combined is helping me get through the things that I need to get through and get back to myself.
Right. When the world is chaotic, my faith is steady.
Yes.
Yeah. I understand. So I want to switch gears a bit.
Okay.
You also deactivated your OnlyFans account.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear that was the source of a lot of your money. And I want to just clear this up right now, because there is a $239 million discrepancy right now going on.
I've seen that.
You have. So April 2022, you said you made $1 million from it in 2021. But now I'm seeing reports that are saying $240 million. What's the actual number?
The actual number, it was close to 2 million within a 2-year span.
2 million.
So I opened it in 2020. So right when the pandemic had hit, I had opened it because I was like, oh my gosh, like what's about to happen? And I had just recently did a TV show called Only Cams, where I produced it and filmed on it just a little bit. So it kind of like gave me the leeway to kind of doing it, because it was something that I didn't want to do at first. But at the time I had so many lawsuits and so many things that I was dealing with. Aside from that, I'm like, I got to figure out how can I like continue to have like my house, take care of my kids, do everything I need to do. So that's why I started the OnlyFans. But I definitely, let's clear this up, I definitely did not make $240 million. Okay. I definitely didn't.
She did not make $240 million, you guys.
I did not.
So I know a major part of that, as you said, was to provide for your kids and kind of keep up that standard of living that they're accustomed to.
Yes.
How do you plan on doing that going forward?
I'm letting faith lead me, honestly, and it's been really good. Yeah. Like I'm not even worrying about like where is like my next deal or where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? I'm just gonna put my right foot in front of my left and my left foot in front of my right and keep it pushing.
I totally understand.
Yeah,
that. I do.
Yeah.
Oh, but Angela, what happened? What really happened to make you go through such a radical change?
Nothing really happened. like I said, like I just started working out, sobriety, and like my Bible. That's it. Those are the three things that I have been sticking with for the past 7 months. And just over that time, it has shown me like really like, okay, like who are you? Like what is it that you want to do? What's the example that you want to set? Like how are you feeling? Like is this really you?
Yeah.
You know, because we put on like hair and makeup, designer clothes to like cover up something, you know, and I want to put like my insecurities aside and really step into like the light, like my own light.
You are you without all of that, trust
Yeah.
me. And there was no one exact moment. There was no one defining moment you can think of that just made you realize I have to do something.
It wasn't.
Really?
Literally, I have been just like walking on water.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, okay, this happened. I didn't get sick. I wasn't ill. Nothing of the sort. I was just like, you know what? But working out is what kind of like maybe kind of led to it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because as I said before, when I started working out, all of the fillers started to become more protruded because I started to slim down. I could really see like my facial structure, but nothing like traumatic that happened.
Nothing dramatic that
No.
changed your heart.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is just God. That's the only thing I could think of.
You know what? That's a good enough answer.
Yeah.
That is always
it's nothing,
a good
it's
enough
nothing
answer.
else.
God.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me, who was Angela Renee White back then?
Fun, adventurous, loud, squeaky voice. Let me see. What else? Yeah. Just really chill. Like I was a chill child. Like I never really got into like trouble. I always made good grades. Lovable. Athletic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So were you shy? Were you outgoing?
Outgoing.
Outgoing for sure. Okay. All right. And I want to know, did you feel similar or different from the other girls your age?
I definitely didn't feel the same as them. I always like felt like myself.
Yeah.
I was more like a leader in my crew.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you attribute that to?
Say it again?
What do you attribute that to? Being a leader, feeling a little different?
It came natural. Like it felt natural, but like looking back, I'm like, okay, yeah, like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like natural, but not like leader, like follow me, like listen to me, but just like, hey, y'all want to see something cool? Or like something of the lines of that. Like the same way. I'm the same way now. I'm like, yo, y'all want to see something cool? Like I just did this. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about your relationship with your mother.
Yes.
How was that growing up? Was she a shoulder to lean on, or did you find solace somewhere else?
So, my mom, I love my mom, everybody. Hey, Mom. So, like, growing up, like, my mom, she was always, like, a hustler to this day. So, I felt, was always, like, doing her thing, sort of. So, like, for me, I would be with my grandmother, and I would be, like, with my godparents, like, different people. Yeah.
Did your grandma teach you something?
Yeah, she taught me a lot of stuff.
What did she teach you that sticks with you to this day?
Man, because, like, growing up, we didn't have money and stuff like that. So we would just do things to improvise and make the best out of everything. So just it helps me now that I'm older. And she taught me how to cook, how to clean, like how to get on your knees and pray, how to be a lady, just all those things combined.
So it sounds like you come from a family full of women who are survivors. They did what they had to do to make it to the next day.
Yes.
I want to know, what was your first job?
My very first job was at McDonald's, and I was 15 and 9 months. I couldn't wait to get a job.
In 15, and you chose McDonald's. You didn't care.
Yep, 15, yep. And I was making like $325 every 2 weeks. Like, but that's a lot of money. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was yours.
It was mine.
And that was what was important.
Yes.
And I know you also worked at Hooters. What's that next after McDonald's?
So after Hooters, I did McDonald's, Taco Bell, Golden Corral, Shoe City, Uno's Pizzeria. And then my final step was, my final like job, punching the clock was Hooters. And then after this, I was like, you know what? I got to get out of here. I gotta make more money than this.
Yeah.
So then I went to another place.
Well, you also went to college.
Yes.
You went to Johnson and Wales University. What did you feel like when you got your acceptance letter?
It was a very exciting moment. It was a very exciting moment because I wasn't sure. It's like always nerve-wracking because you apply, but you're like, man, please, I want to get in. So when I got accepted, I felt really good.
Yeah, and what was your plan at that moment when you got accepted? What did you want to do with your life then?
So I was going to go to school for fashion merchandising, that's what I applied for, and this was in Johnson & Wales in Miami. So they have like different locations. I think they have one in Providence, Florida, but I think they recently closed down the one in Florida. But my plans was to go to Florida with my god sister, do fashion merchandising with her, and just maybe open a business.
Yeah.
Just after that, we don't know. We just wanted to get to Florida and go to school.
But you just wanted to get to Florida.
We had to get to Florida.
Yes.
I had to get away from DC.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the warm weather.
Yep.
So you get there, you get to school, and you discover dancing in strip clubs. What was that like for you? You were making far more money, I'm sure, than most of your friends at school. What was that like?
Right. Okay, so I'm going to back the story up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So when I got accepted into Johnson Wales University, I didn't have any money. So from the Hooters, that's when I was like, I need to figure out how to make some money. So that's when I started dancing at the strip club in DC. So I did that for 2 years. And one day, by this time I had my apartment, my 2-bedroom apartment. I had my 2 cars. I had my little dog, Mango. Like I was just doing it, right? And one day something was like this, something came over me and was like, look inside this box. It was just papers. So I'm like looking through the papers and I seen Johnson & Wales and I kind of looked at it and I was like, dang, that could have been like here. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the piece of paper. So I started to read it and I noticed that it said that it was valid for 2 years. Immediately, I picked up the phone. I called my grandma. I was like, Grandma, this is the last year for my acceptance. I need to get down there, like now. So I called the school. They're like, listen, if you could make orientation, you could come and start the school year. Told my grandma, I was like, Grandma, listen, I'm going to get you from Virginia and then I'm going to drive us all the way from Maryland all the way to Florida and then back home so we don't miss this orientation. Yeah. Like flights wasn't even like in my mind. I'm just like, just get there like now. So she was like, yes, of course I'll go, as long as we could stop at the south of the border. And I was like, okay. So I drove us all the way down there. We stopped at the south of the border. She wanted to get the Last Supper pictures, some back scratchers, a little sombrero hat. So we did that and drove us back. And then after that, I was like, Grandma, this is it. I'm about to move to Florida. I saved up my money so I could go and like pay them. And I was actually living on campus. So everything that I had in my apartment, I was like, Grandma, you can have everything in here. I'm not taking none of this stuff with me. I packed what I could in my Dodge Charger and drove to Florida and never looked back.
Wow. But the goal to actually go to the school or just to get to Florida?
To go to the school.
And
finish what I started. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. But I do want to go back to you making far more money. Clearly, you were already making money, but now I'm sure you're making even more money than that. What was that like, being a student, being so young, juggling, working at one of the biggest strip clubs in the nation and trying to live an everyday student life by day?
It was a conflict of interest. I feel like that's the best way to explain it. So me trying to like dance at night to pay for school during the day, it's no way possible you could do it. Yeah. So I was like kind of like falling asleep in class, things like that. I didn't finish. I only did 2 years, but maybe I'll come back and finish.
So you were in school, you were dancing. How much money were you making at that time?
Honestly, it was coming in so fast and leaving so fast, I couldn't even tell you. But certain nights you could make anywhere from, a slow night you could make $200. And that's like a slow night. A really good night, you can make like 5,000. The most I've ever made ever in one night was 12,000.
In one night?
Yes.
I'm in the wrong career. Okay. Okay. And at what point, was it in school or was it after you decided to leave, did you realize, I'm starting to blow up? People are starting to know my name.
It was when I feel like the real breaking point was when 2010, I was Nicki Minaj's stunt double. So being a stunt double is like, you know that it's you, but you're a stunt double. So it's kind of like, that was in 2010. And then Drake had came out with a song called Miss Me. That featured like the club and like my name. And then that's when it started to really blow up. So I was still dancing in the club while the song Drake, that Drake had mentioned me and Miss Me. And it was kind of crazy because people was like, she already got money. She's already famous, so they didn't want to dance with me. And I'm like, if this was true, like I wouldn't be here.
Right.
Like, no, like give me some money.
It's my job.
Give me some money. Yeah.
Okay, so Drake is mentioning your name, but did it hit you yet? I'm somebody. I'm famous.
No, I don't think so. It didn't hit me, no. Not famous. I mean, being mentioned in a song, it's different levels of famous, I think, for me.
Angela, if Drake mentions me in a song. Okay, you see where I'm going with this.
Right, okay. All right. Maybe.
Yeah. What were your friends like? Were they jealous? How did they feel? The other girls at the club?
They thought it was cool.
Your friends?
Yeah.
Those are some real friends.
Yeah, no, they wasn't jealous.
Right.
No,
Okay.
I don't ever really give off that like vibe for you to really be jealous. Like if you're just jealous, you're just a total hater. That's not cool.
That's not cool.
That's not cool.
Okay. So looking back at who you were in your young 20s, what would you tell yourself now as you're going through this life transformation? What would you tell that girl who basically birthed Blac Chyna?
Control your emotions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you say that?
Because I feel like if you can control your emotions, you can control everything about you and control the room. Because like we're humans, like so everything's based off of emotion, like how we feel and this and that. But if you could control like your emotions, like you could control everything that's brought to you, and like you could send off a different type of energy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So do you have any regrets? Would you do it all the exact same way?
I would do it all the same exact way.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
I would.
So
Yes.
what is next? Is this the end of Blac Chyna?
It's definitely not the end of Blac Chyna. I think now it's more the separation of it. You know, it's like if I'm performing and things like that, that's Blac Chyna. Like if I'm home and I'm with the kids or if I'm doing my business stuff and I'm doing deals, that's Angela. Like how we're just sitting right here and we're having a conversation. This is Angela.
This is
Now,
Angela.
if we go and we got to go get glam, hair, nails, makeup, we got costumes, that's definitely Blac Chyna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you have enough space to do that? I know you've done it on some level for probably a number of years, but sometimes I know when you're trying to get away from who you've been and step into who you're trying to be, do you want who you've been to be so close, just right there next to you, going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like who we are is who we are. It's just unlocking our full potential like within.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it's something new that's brought into like our lives. It's just unlocking like who's really inside of here. So that's what I'm kind of doing right now, like unlocking like who's in here, you know, like that inner childhood, like all of that. Because we're born like how we're born and things like that. And that's why even like me reading books and certain things to like reprogram like my mindset to unlock that.
And who's supporting you on this journey?
Who supported me? I have a lot of people supporting me actually. Even the guys that's watching right now supporting me. But I have a lot of support. And I feel like mostly like support can come from like different ways. You have like emotional, physical, business, it's everything. But
And who's been your main shoulder to lean on during this time?
main shoulder to like lean on,
Other than God?
I would have to say my Bishop James.
Really?
Yeah, I talk to him all the time.
Wow.
He just called me like not too long ago, like, baby, you okay? I'm like, yes, I'm good. Yeah.
Is your mother, is she not on this journey with you?
No, not at the moment. I mean, she is in prayer. You know, I pray for her and make sure she's good and her well-being and things like that. But these are things I feel like she has to deal with herself. Like, no, I can't tell her what to do, or nobody can tell her what to do, you know. But hopefully one day she will, you know, come into her zen, you know. Because my mom, she's really smart. Like, she's really beautiful, all of that. You know, and just growing up, even like looking at some of the things that she do, I now do like just little things. I'm like, hey, my mom used to do that, and I do it now too. So it's like certain things that we do pick up on that we carry from our parents, because that's what we see, and that's why I'm so adamant on the things that I'm doing now, because I want Drink to pick up on the things that I'm doing. So if I'm in the gym and I'm working out, she'll come work out with me, or if like we're eating like our healthy stuff and King and just us as a group. I'm like the mama, but you know, it's my posse. Yeah, I just want them to pick up on the positive traits and things like that. That's going to help them in the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you intend on telling Dream? Because she's going to grow up and she's going to be able to understand everything that's out there. How do you intend on explaining all of those situations with the other side of her family and everything to her?
I don't think that it's going to be any type of explanation, me talking to Dream and things like that, because it's going to be so far behind, you know, and every day we're growing and growing and growing. And I'm pretty sure that the relationship between everybody is going to become more better. You know, people have to heal, time has to pass, and only time will tell. But on my end, everything's like positive. It's nothing like negative at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you are. Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
what is next for Angela?
So what's next for me, Angela, the businesswoman, Blac Chyna, the brand, the music, television, film, and also 2 more new business ventures. Yeah.
Can you tell us more?
See, I'm a creator, and I like to create things, and I like to do it from A to Z. So I feel like now, by me posting that video, it makes me want to post like the journey of creating like a new business venture, and showing them like the steps and how to do it, and where does it stem from? Because I want to like inspire other people, because everybody, we're all creators. We just have to unlock it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And once you unlock it, it's going to be so good for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to know, you said television.
Yes.
Do you have a new show coming out? What's going on?
Yes, we just got picked up for the Blackhampton season 2.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. And also too, like more movies. And I don't want to say two of them, because it's not fully in writing and paper in black and white yet. But I'm really excited about it.
Ooh.
And it's just lining up, because like I feel like even with some of the characters, if you think about it, most people that act and actresses, they have like their flaws and their things, and it's like you can't have like a perfect face and these type of boobs in the butt, you know.
Yes.
Or you're just gonna get casted for just this type of role. Like I want to do all types of role. I want to do thriller, like action. I want to do some, you know, some crazy stuff, jumping out the buildings, you know. Comedy, all that. Don't put me in a box. So I'm trying to do all
Don't
of
put you
that.
in the box. So, Angela, can you tell me something that you haven't told anyone else yet?
Okay, so something that I haven't told anyone yet, and I'm gonna let you know today, is that I have a hair factory in Asia.
Really? Tell me more.
Yes, a hair factory in Asia.
A hair factory.
Yes.
So what are you doing? Or explain that to me. I'm not in the hair business.
Okay, so basically, this is going back to what I was telling you about, like empowering women to like start their own businesses and things like that. The name of the company is called the Hair Plug Agency. So basically we'll do like your website, your logo and all of that. But the factory is hair extensions, but we have the donors that come, so it's all raw hair. And we have the different sections. I'll show you some of the videos, but we have the different sections for where we wash it, cut it, ship it, all of that. So now, not only am I going to just be empowering just myself, I'm going to give the chance for other women to go out and make their own money and be financially stable just by themselves. Yeah. So I feel like that's really, really, it makes me feel really good about it. Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
Is that
and nobody knows about it. No except for you know now. And then everybody know now.
So is that going to be your main source of income now? Like how much money is it making?
I'm actually about to release it this week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had to do all like the back end and all that. But no, it's not going to be my main source of income, but definitely one. Because I learned over the years, and I've had like many deals with different people. And what happens is when you have these deals and say like if they don't want to work with you or renew the contract, what happens is you're accustomed to a certain lifestyle now and getting this certain amount of money. And then when you're not getting that certain amount of money, then that's when you start to lose everything. That's why you see certain people where like they had it and then they didn't. It's because they didn't start their own companies and their own businesses to make sure that they can keep it going. Because if you betting on yourself, how could you let yourself down? And and once you learn the business like by yourself, then you could bring on other people to run it for you. But you have to put in the work. Like you have to build the foundation of it, know the ins and outs of it, like how, like what's the marketing, like how to do this, how to do that. But that comes over time. And once you learn that and you master that, then you could go on to the next thing.
It's important to own your own stuff.
It's very important. It's very important, especially in the entertainment industry.
Okay.
Or in general. Like, honestly, like, we want to own something, you know?
Even the Bible says you should own land. Where can we find more about this information?
You can go to heartspure.com. And it'll be listed there.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me.
Thank you. This was really nice. I'm really excited.
Yes.
Yes, and thank you. You were awesome.
Thank you.
Joining me now is author, director, and producer Geena Rocero. Geena, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You wear many hats. You are also a tireless advocate for trans rights. And right now, trans rights in America are at a turning point here. Yeah. They are under assault politically. In 2023 alone, over 80 anti-trans bills have reportedly been passed. When you hear that number, what's your response?
You know, let me just say first that I was born and raised in the Philippines. You know, I've had this long journey of a life where trans people in the Philippines barely have any rights at all, right? So I want to take that into consideration in my perspective, especially with what's happening right now. There's a couple of things. One is like, it's horrible what they're trying to do. A group of people that's supposed to protect all citizens are specifically demonizing what's already the most vulnerable in our community, right? So that's one answer to that. The second part is, I know my community as a trans people, particularly trans youth, we know our truth. We've known it since the very beginning, so there's nothing wrong with us. It's them, to be completely spiritually honest, I think it's them so afraid to look within themselves, the truth that we speak about, right? That here we are in a world that doesn't want us to exist, in a world that doesn't create a space for us. We still choose to live our life fully because that's what we're about. So and then the other side of that, it's like now more than ever, trans people, the people who are saying that they're allies, we need accomplices right now. We really need more than the lip service, because it's really what's happening on the ground. I'm friends with a lot of people that are working on the ground. It's really dire. And I think, mutual aid support system would help, but more so, we need to hear more as a trans community what's being done in support of us.
Let's talk about those accomplices. How should people join this conversation? People that might not have a platform, people that aren't political leaders. How does just a person who wants to be an ally, wants to be an accomplice join? And where do you see the difference between being an accomplice and being an ally?
I mean, it's also when people ask me the definition of an ally. I mean, purely for me, the ally is it's a verb, not a noun. it's what you do. And really deeply, if we want to look deeply into that, like it's really about, it's the marginalized community gets to say that one is an ally, right? Not one gets to automatically define that I'm an ally, but what does it really mean, right? And then it should be a constant dynamic conversation about what needs to be done, right? So that's, that's first. And the second thing is like, we know that policies could only go so far. As I mentioned earlier, like I'm from the community of the Philippines where it's all about the community. Like I exist not as an individual in the Philippines. I exist because I'm a reflection of community. And I think now more than ever, we really need to really deep within what this community really means. Community where we truly care for one another, where we do mutual aid support, where someone is going through, mental health issues. We need to be there for them. Besides just like this overarching political, policies that we need to obviously advocate for, right? The other, big like next step thing is really vote. What's coming up, it's been, I'm not exaggerating here. It's really so much on the line here, not just for trans folks, but like anybody that for so long in this country that's been considered as the other. It's true what they say, when they come for me, when they come for us, they come for you. And we see that now more than ever happening more and more.
You said you're from the Philippines, and there aren't as many rights for trans people there. What in America do you think is missing from this conversation, especially at a national level?
I think, just to pinpoint what I'm in the Philippines, I was from the culture of trans beauty pageants in the Philippines, where we've always been part of mainstream society in the Philippines. It's complicated because I always say that trans people in the Philippines are culturally visible, right? We're part of mainstream, but we're not politically recognized. But from my personal journey of moving to America, I experienced the other way around. There was a degree of political recognition at the time, but there was no cultural visibility the way that we're having now. I think nationally, it should be both, right? That kind of, political recognition where we have the most basic rights that we're asking for. I mean, it's the basic rights to exist, to identify as we are, to create a safe space. These are basic things, right? But also, the way trans people and gender non-conforming people are portrayed in media, we're the first ones to get demonized, right? I think that kind of dynamic conversation always has to happen. And because we're also, I'm in the media, I do work in front of the media. As a society, as a culture, we're obsessed with this thing called visibility. And we now know, since when I did my TED Talk in 2014, where it's all about be visible, be out, we now know that could only go so far. I think those things that I'm saying about the dynamic conversation about basic rights, mutual aids, access to the most basic things about mental health care and how we treat each other in the community every day is some of the things that are most important.
You've been at the forefront of this conversation at least since 2014 when you did that really empowering, powerful TED Talk. And we're at the Power Women's Summit now. And one of the major themes of today is lifting the women who are coming behind us up on our shoulders.
Yeah.
How are you doing that? And what's your one piece of advice that you wish you received maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
As a writer, producer, director now, I remember after that TED Talk this viral TED Talk that I did in 2014, and the next thing I knew, I was speaking at United Nations, White House, all the places, right? And yes, in the moment, it was really important for me, the only one. I would find myself to be the only trans person, to be the only woman in the room, to be the only person of color in the room, right? And in some instance at the beginning, I felt like, oh yeah, you're trailblazing here. But it came to a point where I realized I wanted to question the system that allowed me to be who I am. And once I started doing that maybe some people would think that I've opened doors, I began to think that how do I keep that door open? And how do I bring people with me? And as a storyteller, as a writer, I had a production company or be given a platform and the biggest, media companies to produce docuseries, stories about what it means to be trans and gender nonconforming, and really share the vast experiences of lived reality of trans people, not just, from my perspective, but perspective of so many people.
You said in this conversation so much is on the line. As we said at the top, over 80 anti-trans bills were passed just this year alone. We're not even through 2023 yet. But are you seeing any glimmers of hope anywhere?
I'd say this: when I have so many conversations with trans youth. I'm friends with so many people that are on the ground. When people ask me, what do I say to young trans folks that's maybe feeling obviously, the dire reality that they're seeing, especially what's happening in the media, I tell them, you've been part of a long history of trans and gender non-conforming people since the very beginning of time, since pre-colonial times. We've existed, we've survived, we're still here. You're part of this long journey of resilience, beauty, and power. Remember that, because it might seem very dire right now. Try to remember that you've been part of this long journey, and we will get through this by being with each other as a community. So that's what I tell them. It may not create that instant gratification of like, I don't want to offer, fake solutions that it will get better right away. But certainly the bigger picture is that this has been a long journey and we're still here.
And we're still on this journey. You don't want to offer fake solutions, but what do you see maybe as the solution 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? What does that really look like?
I'd say this from my perspective as an artist. I love creating art where I get to create worlds that are maybe not expected of me. And even as a Filipina, that's not my first trajectory to pursue a career in art. So I tell them is to, in as much as we're being vilified in the media right now, keep living your truth. Keep living unapologetically as you are, because the best advocacy that one could do for themselves is to fully live as they are, despite what the world is telling them to act, to be a certain way. So
I do want to talk about your upcoming projects really quickly. You just released a memoir called Horse Barbie back in May.
Yes.
And first tell us about the memoir, but also what's next for Geena?
Well, I'm still on a book tour, so I know I'm going in book tours in universities now. So that that's a very particular special thing for me to go and visit college universities, because my mom is a teacher. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's simple why I love going to universities, because I wish when I was in school there was someone like me who's so proud and unapologetic about living their truth. I could just imagine what it would have done for me, at the time in my life. So I think about that, what it could do to a young gender nonconforming, or just any young college student that wants to see a different perspective in the world, and maybe it could open up a new perspective for them. So I enjoy doing that. And as I mentioned, I'm directing, I'm producing. That's the extent that I could share. So I want to direct more. So that's and write more, and yeah.
Well, we will look out for upcoming projects. Geena, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
The 2023 BLK Summit in Atlanta, man. Nick Cannon in the house, man. Really appreciate the time. What do you think of the event, man?
Jabari, man, y'all setting it off up in here. It's live, it's electric, it's us, man.
Yeah.
So job well done.
I appreciate that, man. I wanted to do this because every time I watch that clip of you and Keenan and how he always used to say he used to be a Jabari, right? It's amazing, man. Now you're sitting talking to a Jabari.
Actual Jabari.
Yeah, you're talking to an actual Jabari. How does it feel to talk to an actual Jabari?
I've envisioned Jabaris in my life. Nah, man, it's an inside joke that Keenan and I have. That's one of my best friends in life, and we literally, because that's a black name.
Yeah,
that we always, it's your name. So everybody know a Jabari.
Yeah, when I write the name and I fill out your ethnicity, I'm like, come on, y'all can figure that out. Y'all can figure it out.
Exactly.
So what's 2024 in store, man? 2023 is over, right?
Man,
and I'm sure you got
so
a lot.
excited about 2024, all the innovation and entrepreneurial efforts that we're putting together in the space of just content, ownership, assets, acquisitions. You know what I mean? Like, I've had the opportunity throughout my career to kind of watch the game shift and be able to adapt. And now I'm in that space, man, of really building platforms to give others opportunities. So, we got a few new shows. We got the Future Superstar show that just launched that really is about the next generation of music artists. We got a show doing a lot of stuff on the Amazon platform and building. You know, they have so much going on from the spaces of commerce and content merging together. So I'm on there daily. I'm on Twitch, I'm on Prime, I'm on Freebie, so we're doing stuff with them. And then of course, building this will.i.am brand to kind of continue to sustain in the space of, you know, content creators, comedy, and really just brand innovation.
Yeah. What's the future of will.i.am, man? Because you just mentioned, I mean, it was with MTV for a long time. I mean, do you continue on that path? Or
I think it's grown beyond it. You know what I mean? I love what Paramount is doing of how they, you know, kind of compartmentalized everything, but still keeping everything under the Paramount umbrella. So now it's not, will.i.am isn't just MTV, it isn't just BET, it isn't VH1, it's its own brand. And you'll see that more and more. It's Paramount's most #1 digital brand out of all of their, you know, entities combined. So I'm excited to just allow it to grow and continue to partner with them and allow it to stand on its own, because that's where it's going. Like, we used to, you know, turn to a certain channel to watch something. Now you just type it in. And from that, you know, we've had so much traction and so much growth, especially in the digital space. So we live in there super strong. Yeah,
and you're just coming off of our panel, man. Thanks you again, talking about Africa and ways you can expand on that continent. And I've been having so many conversations with people that live in Africa, businesses. I know fintech is one of the areas that they're looking at. What are you looking at when it comes to that? I know you want to expand Wild and Out over there, but is there any other areas?
And the talent there. You know what I mean? Obviously, music has already led the charge.
Absolutely.
You know, they're the #1 music around the world right now. And then I feel like that's the same way in the space of film and television, man. There's so many stories that should be told, I mean, about the continent. And great historical stories, man. Like, I wanted to even talk more about that on the panel. Like, we want to hear the story of Mansa Musa. We want to hear the story of Nefertiti. We want to hear the story of
Fila.
It's so many that, you know, if we dig deep, because I'm always one of the pontificators when it comes to, like, yo, we're much more than just, you know, our post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? The African Americans here always believe our history starts with slavery. When we come from great lineage of kings, scientists, creators, you know, the architects of our culture, and I want to be able to help tell those stories.
2024, that's what the future is. But let's flash back 1 minute for 2023, right? Because you cannot talk about hip hop culture without mentioning you in that, right? I mean, you can't go, and Drumline was a piece of hip hop culture, right?
Man,
You're a piece of hip hop culture. Did you like the way that hip hop was celebrated on the 50th anniversary, or could it have been better?
I mean, I always believe it could have been better, just because I feel like I am a child of hip hop, as you put it. So I want to see it on the biggest stages. I think everybody who saluted it and celebrated it did a fantastic job. I love the fact that, you know, everything from seeing the Hip Hop Museum go up in the Bronx to all of the things that we got to see at the Grammys, and certain, I believe there's even another coming up literally this week, a celebration at the Grammys and CBS are putting on. But we got to keep going. We got to go harder, because it is our culture. It's the #1 export, and everyone knows that hip hop is taking over the world. So, and it's still young. It's 50, but I want them to scream it louder from the mountaintops. But every celebration has been dope, and it's so dope to see our OGs get recognized.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And bring it together with, you know, everybody who's moving and shaking in the culture right now. I think Jay did it, you know, Jay was celebrated in such an amazing way with the, you know, the Brooklyn Museum, and, you know.
Have you been?
I haven't. I want to go. I'm trying to get there.
Yeah.
I'm back in New York next week, so I'm gonna try to get out there.
You got to, man, because it's not gonna be there forever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I keep forgetting it's an exhibit, so I got to go myself, man.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I get you out of here on this because you got a plane to catch.
Yeah.
Always ask people at the end, because Jim Collins wrote a great book. It's called Good to Great. Right?
Yeah.
How do you transition from good to great? You've been there, Nick. You've climbed the ladder in entertainment. Steve Harvey's one of your mentors.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, done that. How does one get from good to great in this society?
Perseverance. You get from good to great by not stopping. It's going to be many obstacles, it's going to be many challenges, but those are only meant to sharpen you from good to great. You start off as good.
Yeah.
We all got some goodness in us, but that perseverance, that stick-to-itiveness is what allows people to become great. You know what I mean? Especially when you weather the storm and you see adversity. That's where the greatness occurs.
Perseverance.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
Oh,
Nick
man.
Cannon, 2023 BLK Summit. Gotta have you back in future summits.
Come
man.
on, man, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
And you're going
here.
to Africa and Botswana, man.
Let's go.
Yeah, man.
I'm here. Make me part of the Forbes family.
You already are, man.
There it
Appreciate
is.
the time, bro.
All right.
Thank you, man.
Cattrall, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You have a long history of advocating for yourself. Can you talk about how you came to do that within an industry where it can be really hard to advocate for yourself?
I always felt that if it needed to start with me, and if I believed in myself, then others might too. I never thought, oh, I'm not good enough. I thought, let's see if I'm good enough. I always used it as a sort of a challenge to myself. And I always listened to that little voice inside of me that would say, yeah, you can do this. You got this. Or, shit. So you've got to just really listen to yourself and get the temperature of what you're trying to achieve is even possible. I had a very dear friend for years, and he was pursuing a career that just kept saying no, 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 no. So instead of going through the front door, he went through the back door, and he decided to work behind the camera and became a really, really well-known director. So his dream changed, he modified it, but he found a way to get there and probably find ultimately a job that was equally as fulfilling.
I love stories like that because it shows a non-linear career path can be just as fulfilling.
Yeah.
As you look at how you advocate for yourself now versus earlier in your career, what has changed? How did you advocate for yourself then, and how do you do it now?
Well, I think I'm much more selective about what I do because I'm in a fortunate position where I can pay my rent if I decide not to do something.
Right.
But I think that the difficult thing is to really register how things affect you and take that into consideration. Also taking care of yourself, making sure that you're ready. That's why small steps are so important, because all those small steps are really a leap, not just to achieving what you want, but also getting to know how you work under pressure. How you work when there is no pressure. I mean, it's really a way of getting to know more and more of who you are. And when you understand more of who you are much more equipped to understand how you can get what you want. I think being powerful is knowing what you want and experimenting with that to see if that works for you. Because, the climate might not be right for you, or this might not be the right job for you, but ultimately, if you start asking those questions and listen, the answers are there. It might not be the answer you want or you like, but it might be a happier life. One of the things at this age for me that I'm so certain of is that I don't want to be in a situation for even an hour where I'm not enjoying myself.
You first said that, I think, in 2019, and I think you broke the internet. The comments went viral. First part of my question is, were you surprised at the reaction? Because I think those comments resonated with a lot of women.
I was, because for me, I remember saying it and thinking, yeah, that's me. That's where I am now. That's not where I was when I was 16 or 26 or 36, 46 or even 56. But at 67, that's still where I am. I want to make people happy. I want to make people laugh. But I also want to continue to do things that fulfill me, that I feel really strong about. And saying no is important, but saying yes to the right things is important too.
So that was my first question. My second question related to this is, you said that wasn't necessarily how you felt at 16 or earlier in your career. Was there a specific moment, a lightning bolt realization that let that become your motto?
I think it came just late in life, that motto. I think when I was younger, I was just following what other people were telling me I should do, I should be, I should say. And they would constantly say, oh, just be yourself. But I kept thinking, I don't know who I am yet. It takes a lifetime to really understand more about yourself. Other people can see it because they're outside of you. But yes, you know yourself, but to really, really know and listen and really put what makes you happy. Make that a priority. Most women don't do that. They can't afford to do it.
They either can't afford or they get so much advice. I've learned that a lot of men will say, oh, put yourself first or be selfish about your time. But then what they want you to be selfish about is the thing that helps them.
Exactly.
So if you have 5 people telling you.
Listen to this, the thing that says, I don't like this. don't like this guy, this job's not for me. I mean, that whole feeling that we were talking about with Katie is that coming into a room and thinking, is this the right boss for me? Not, am I the client that needs to, yeah, I'm good at my job. You should hire me because I'm good at my job. Yeah, but if you don't, I know I can get another job.
It's an
That
empowering.
confidence of listening to what's right for you. And what happens is when you start to do that, it's addictive. You start to get more and more sharpened to what turns you off in any given situation. I was always better at that in my work than I was personally. I think personally it's tougher because you yearn to be loved back.
Yes.
But in a job, you can be loved too. And you need to listen to what that says, your warm fuzzy or whatever you want to call it. You need to listen to it and really give it space, because that's who you are. That's protecting you. That's got your back. That voice has been there since you were born and will be there till you die. And you have to do the work. And when I was younger, I was doing these jobs that all these agents and producers said I should do. I would never have done them, except for that kind of pressure of, this is what happens now in your career. That isn't to say you shouldn't say yes to jobs that are challenging and scary. Yeah, that's a good reason. I haven't done it before. But that voice is where you want to be. You want to be in tune with it.
You mentioned your age, and we're not going to mention specific projects due to the strikes,
Strike,
but one of your characters, I'll keep it broad, landed on a 50 over 50 list. And your character was not terribly happy to be on this list. There was some grumbling. And we have the Forbes and Know Your Value 50 over 50, and we see it as a positive thing because it's a list of women who are stepping into their power. I want to ask, do you, Kim, how do you feel about your age? Is it an advantage or disadvantage?
Well, I'm still waiting to be called to the 50 over 50. Better hurry up.
Well, we have the next one coming
There
up.
you go.
So
There you
consider
go.
This a
Rectify this.
Consider this a pre-interview.
Okay, all right, okay.
But I ask women on the list, is your age an advantage or disadvantage? And some people say advantage, some people identify the disadvantage as...
For me, personally and professionally, it's an advantage. I've had a really long, wonderful career. I'm very grateful. And but when I'm not in the public eye, I love that life too. You know, they feed into each other, because I think, again, talking about that inner voice, we're together for Kim's happiness. You know, we're working together. I'm listening, they're listening. So if you can get that co-pilot to take you to the destination that you want to go, it's not seamless, nothing's seamless. It's the world, we're humans, it's crazy. But it'll be a less bumpy ride, because along the way, it'll be fun. It'll be an adventure. But you got to take care of yourself.
You seem to be having fun. What's next for you? What's next on the fun list?
I can't.
Oh, you can't talk about it. Well, speaking of the strikes, I do want to ask, what will it take for there to be resolution, and what do you want to see?
I think there's got to be give and take, and this has been coming for a very long time. And the world has changed since the last contract, and we need to take that into account, and we need to address it. There's a whole audience out there waiting to be entertained. Actors and writers, that's what we do, that's what we love to do. So let's sit down and hash it out. There's more than enough rewards for everyone.
Well, I look forward to sitting down with you when you're able to talk a little more about those specifics. But in the meantime, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Rosemary Miller here with Ryan Leslie, who will talk all about the music industry and how to manage our money. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we are all trying to make some money, save some money, make our money, make some money. And you have a wealth plan, which is what, a financial literacy club?
Yes.
What gave you the idea to create
It's a
this?
club, you know. I feel as though really when we grow up, we are taught almost culturally that finances are, and there's actually a moniker for it, personal finance, right? And so we are caught in between, should we share what's happening with our finances? Should we keep it a secret? I know for me growing up, it was, hey, you don't talk about how much you make. You don't talk about how much you have invested, how much you have saved. What I found, though, is that when you can make the journey a collective journey, the pathway to, let's call it understanding of what's actually happening, the ability to have a sounding board where you have a community of folks that are concerned and have some care and consideration for your financial well-being, this can really make a massive difference in the achievement of, let's call it exponential compounding. So that's really what the premise of Wealth Plan was all about, is the fact that when I decided I wanted to learn finances, I wanted to not rent a Bruce Lee movie and teach myself karate. I wanted to learn directly from someone who actually did it the right way. And so Wealth Plan is exactly that. It allows me to, based on what I've been able to achieve, now be able to give back in a way that allows me to be a one-on-one mentor and hopefully make an impact that's not just going to be for the person I'm mentoring, but for a family, for a generation as well.
So speaking of generations, how can someone who, ain't got no generational wealth, how can they get to that point?
Yeah. To get to generational wealth, so much has been said about it, right? It's such a simple concept. It's the eighth wonder of the world. It is compounding. Okay. And you can start, it's really just about starting. So listen, when you think about compounding, you think about it over time, the wealthiest investors, or maybe the most well-known wealthiest investors, the ones that are on the Forbes list, the ones that have done it in the financial markets, those investors are those who started small and just consistently compounded over time. Now, I know that there are so many, let's call it, apprehensions when it comes to the stock market. It can be a very sort of, it can be a very sort of opaque, scary place to be, right? And when we look at statistics, when we're able to actually remove the human tendencies that will make an investor lose money, when we're able to remove those human tendencies from our decision making, we're actually able to have smooth sailing when it comes to compounding. So what does that mean? That means that we should be able to drive our decision making with data and statistics. The best data around a company that you want to own is just the fundamental data of how the business is actually performing. And the beauty of the public markets in the United States of America is that every 3 months you can get a very, very clear earnings report from every single company that's publicly traded. And if you want to actually, let's call it, reduce your risk and volatility, you can just invest in an index. And the S&P 500, we hear it talked about all the time, but the reason we hear about it all the time is because when you look at the historical statistical data of being invested in the S&P, a time horizon of 20 years or more means that you have a 0% chance of loss. So if you can take losses out of investing in the stock market, how much more at ease can we be when taking our first steps? And so when we think about generational wealth, and that's the question you're asking, it's about getting started as early as possible. And that means that even if you're starting later, let's say you're starting in 30s, 40s, 50s, you know someone in your family, could be a son, daughter, niece, or nephew, that once you've acquired this knowledge, each one teach one. And it's the ability to actually show how your money is working for you to those who are coming up after you. And once they can, let's call it develop, but not just develop, but master a sense of how to actually navigate the financial markets, you find that starting earlier delivers exponential results over time when it comes to compounding. And what's compounding? It's just incremental gains, 100,000 or even 10,000 or 1,000 that grows by 10%. That percentage is equal for everyone across the board. So if you stay invested for a year, you got $1,000 and you get a 10% return, you're going to make $100 on that 1,000. So learning, go ahead.
What would you tell someone who, I don't know, they 70 years old, they're doing this, they ain't got all that time.
Yes.
What would you tell that person?
So you're saying someone who's starting much later.
Much later.
Right.
Yeah.
Really, there really is no difference to the strategy, right?
Okay.
Because obviously starting at 70 is much later than, let's say, someone learning at 24 or 25, right? The vehicles into which you can invest remain the same. So the S&P 500 has been around for 70 years. You have to get started. They say the best time to start investing was 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
Okay, so eliminating losses, if there's a way to do that, why isn't everybody doing it?
I would say, you know, amongst the folks that are actually a part of my wealth plan club, really the reasons that I hear for folks who haven't done it is because they were never introduced to this concept. And even though the concepts are very, very simple, they require no more than middle school math to understand. If we look at our educational journey, from the time we're in middle school to when we get to high school to when we get to college, most of our education and training is really focused on making us dependent on the capitalist system in which we live. Living paycheck to paycheck, deciding that we want to go out and actually, you know, go take on a large amount of debt, which is collateralized by a home, the American dream. The difference, though, is when you look at stories of folks that have really made it, and I'm talking about multi-billionaire status, they got started very early and they got started in a different way. And what they did was actual real ownership without having to leverage debt to acquire the ownership. What does that mean? If you've got $100,000, you can actually put $100,000 down on, let's say, a $400,000 house, right? You're actually taking on $300,000 in debt. On the flip side, if you have $100,000 and you invest it, let's say, in Apple, this isn't financial advice, but if you were to invest that $100,000 in Apple, the difference there is based on the actual brokerage system that we have in the United States. Not only do you actually own outright the piece of the business that you bought when you spent $100,000 on Apple, the brokerage system will actually allow you to be your own bank, which means that if you got $100,000 in Apple, because it's been such a well-performing company, the brokerage will actually allow you to borrow against that asset, and it's collateralized by the asset. So in some cases, I work with folks who have got $100,000 in Apple, but they might need, you know, $70,000 to start a business. Well, they're able to actually leverage $50,000 of that $100,000, start the business, and pay themselves back. All the while, they never had to sell any of their Apple stock. So while they spent a year, 2 years, 3 years developing that business, growing that $50,000 investment, hopefully into $250,000, Apple stock that they own for that $100,000 is working in the background over those 3 years as well. And if we look at just what's happened this year in Apple stock, it has actually achieved new all-time highs. And that is really the byproduct of excellent leadership, excellent product, excellent services. You find that those businesses, productive assets that we own, they are going to outperform over time.
So in your opinion, what's one thing that sets a good investor from a great investor apart?
Yeah, so a good investor from a great investor. I know there's so much that's been written about this, but I would say that it's really just about automating and removing emotion from your investment decisions. I would say that really there are three human tendencies that I come across in working with the folks that come to join our Wealth Plan Club, and that's fear, greed, and ego, all right? So fear, very, very simple. There's two sides of the coin. Fear of missing out. Oh my goodness, I see, and let's go back to Apple stock, it's at all-time highs. Oh my gosh, I need to buy right now. And there is, let's call it a disconnect about how the stock market works. When a company is running up, it doesn't mean that it's always just going to be a straight line up. There will be times where investors may take some profits off of the table. So fear of missing out may cause an investor to overpay for an investment, right? Because they're chasing, right, a concept or an idea. But also fear of losing money. So maybe because of their fear of missing out, they might buy a company at 300 or 400 a share, and that company might come all the way down to 250 or 225. And that fear of losing money will cause them to sell, as opposed to actually allowing the company the time to actually grow and develop as a great investment. So fear, greed, which kind of drives the American capitalist system in general. And so our desire to retire earlier, to make more money faster, that sort of feeds into this frenzy in some cases that we may find in the markets. And then also ego. There are a number of folks who may all of a sudden say, well, I've watched all the YouTube videos, I've looked at all of the interviews that Rosemary's ever done, I've read all the books, and I just know where the market is going to go. And as Warren Buffett has said so aptly, the markets can remain irrational longer than most investors, or really any investor, can remain solvent. So even if you do actually know, and you feel like you know, and you're like, there's no way that this company can keep going down and down and down and down, I'm just going to keep buying, I'm just going to keep holding on. What Warren is really saying is that the markets can remain irrational longer than you can continue to buy into that investment. So really, for investors that are just getting started, my recommendation, and once again, not financial advice, but what I've seen work very, very well over decades and decades, is just creating an automated way out of every paycheck or anytime you get paid to actually own as much of the American financial ecosystem as possible. And if you don't have an idea of what exact companies to pick, just buy a basket of 500 great companies like the S&P, or buy a basket of the top 100 technology companies. If you feel like, hey, technology is transforming the way that we live and interact, we can buy the NASDAQ 100. It's not very, very expensive, and you can do so by just automating it. The beauty of index funds is that they actually are, they're set up in such a way that you don't have to do the buying and selling. So when a company is no longer worthy of being in the S&P, the index will automatically rebalance. It will allow a different company to come in, so that you're always really in the best investments, the best vehicles for your capital.
So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on cryptocurrency?
My thoughts on cryptocurrency, well, I've had an incredible journey with crypto. If you check my Twitter all the way back, I would say 2013, I said, pay me in Bitcoin. So all the way back, we're talking 10 years ago now. Yeah. And there was a time where all of my royalties, all of my revenue, I was making sure that people were actually paying me in Bitcoin all the way back then. So when I was earning the bulk of my revenue in Bitcoin, it was really trading at about $125 a coin. Fast forward to now, it's about $30,000 a coin as of today. And so I've had an incredible journey there, but I've mostly stayed invested in the flagship cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin.
So do you ever suggest cryptocurrency to any of your clients?
Well, I actually never suggest an investment. What I mostly do is just teach them about all of the different vehicles. And we're talking about even complex derivatives in some cases, how to buy and sell promises in the stock market to earn more on your capital. I just want to make sure that I educate and really just provide a framework, let's call it a framework through which they can view their investing journey.
So you mentioned you wanted to be paid in Bitcoin for your royalties.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if you saw, but Snoop Dogg recently had a big issue with the streaming industry for musicians.
Right.
So could you talk about that? I want to know, like, how are artists getting paid with streaming?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. You can really just do a Google search and say, how much do I get per stream? And it's going to tell you it's about maybe 0.005 cents, if we want to call it. So like a half a penny or so on every single stream. So when you think about how streaming is actually working, where you can release a song and get millions and millions of streams, you just multiply those millions of streams by that percentage of a penny that you get for every stream. Now, the bottom line is that the music industry has needed to evolve. We don't have physical CDs. Maybe if you're a collector, you still have some physical vinyl. But at the end of the day, really, we want to have the entire library of all recorded music right in our pocket on our mobile device. And so companies like Spotify, and you can buy Spotify, you can own Spotify if you believe in that, companies like Apple Music, they provide those platforms, Jay-Z's Tidal, provide those platforms so that you actually can make your playlist. If you have a running playlist, you have a playlist for romance, you have a playlist for a wedding, a party, you have the ability to do it.
I want to know, is streaming better or worse than going through a record label for artists?
Well, record companies, they actually are streaming their artists as well, right?
Okay.
So the bottom line is that whether you're signed to a major or you're releasing independently, you have the same opportunity to distribute your music globally through the streaming platforms. And there are a number of aggregators. One of my favorites is Steve Stout's United Masters. You don't have to be signed to a major label. The major label is really to have some infrastructure and to have some capital behind your release. But if you've got your own infrastructure and capital, you can literally press 2 buttons, go to an aggregator, go to a distributor, and literally within 1 week, your music is available globally.
So are you at all afraid of AI's disruption in the music industry? It has its pros, but it definitely has its cons. Is it going to put some people out of business?
I believe that technology is already sort of transforming really every single aspect of our lives. And I always have approached technology from a place of embracing the technology, understanding the technology, and understanding the ways that human intelligence is differentiated from artificial intelligence. In so doing, obviously, we're the ones that came up with AI. In so doing, we can understand how we can remain valuable as the landscape changes. When you look at the headlines, I think I've seen, in some of the Forbes headlines recently, that if you can be a great prompter for ChatGPT, you can be earning 6-7 figures per year. And so it is about understanding where the opportunity is. And that opportunity is really in embracing the technology, understanding the technology, mastering the technology so that you can actually benefit from it. And I believe that that goes for any industry that may, want to put new and emerging technology at arm's length. What I found is that great companies that lean into research and development, they find that they're able to accelerate their place in the future of what our economy and what our world is going to look like.
So that sounds like skills-based learning. That's a skill, learning how to do a prompt.
Yeah.
And I know you're a Harvard man and you're all about education, but what do you think the value of a college degree will be in the near future?
For me, when I think about my time at Harvard, man, some of the buddies that I have there, my buddy Taj Clayton, my boy Mark Price, my brothers Diallo and Bashir, folks that I met during Harvard, my other buddy Lex, these are all folks or people that I met through colleagues at Harvard. One of my longtime partners, Rashid Richmond, his sister was at school with me, his sister Afra. I believe that being in that ecosystem with high performance critical thinkers is the true value of that college experience. So anyone that you ask, whether they've gone to Cornell or whether they've gone to USC, whether they've gone like my sister at Cal Berkeley, there are relationships that are built there in the formative years of our lives where you find potential business partners, potential collaborators, lifetime and lifelong friends. And I believe that that's really sort of a priceless exchange for the tuition that we pay. Now, the other reason why I'm never really worried about tuition is because when you can master what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, you can take a very small amount of capital and over time compound that capital to cover whatever expenses you may have accrued in student loan debt, et cetera. And I think a lot of what I've found is people necessarily either A, just don't want to learn it, B, they have maybe somebody in their family lost some money in the stock market, says, I don't want to touch that at all. But what we find is that being uninvested is actually losing you money, right? Because all of the headlines, at least the current headlines, are very, very focused around inflation. The cost of goods and services are going higher. So that means that $1 today is actually really retains less purchasing power. So you've got to find some way to crack the whip on that money and make it do some somersaults and make it work for you. Otherwise, what you'll find is the same $10 that you wanted to spend on a quick run to, you know, one of the bodegas uptown, that $10 is buying you less and less and less. So that means that you need to make sure that whether it's with our Wealth Plan Club or just on your own or with someone that you trust, you have to figure out how to actually make the money that you earn and work so hard for. You have to figure out a way to actually make that money work for you. And that's what we do at Wealth Plan.
So other than Wealth Plan, what's next for Ryan Leslie?
Listen, this, I think, for me has really become I think it will be a part of my legacy, what I'm doing at Wealth Plan. It's tremendously rewarding to unlock a financial future that someone may have almost completely overlooked. And the way that we work at Wealth Plan is it's very individualized and tailored. So it's one-on-one, and it's for folks that actually, like me, when I first was seeking out a mentor, they want that personalized attention. They understand it's called personal finance for a reason, and they want to actually have someone to show them the way in a real way, one-on-one, step-by-step, hand-in-hand. And so that's what I've been doing. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a stockbroker. All I can do is show folks what has made a multi-million-dollar difference in the returns in my portfolio. And because of those returns, it gives me the latitude, it gives me the opportunity outside of obviously running my venture-backed company, Superphone, right, which is about technology. We could talk about that a little bit more. Outside of doing that, it provides a very, very rewarding aspect to my life, because what's the use of being wealthy on your own? You want to have folks around you who once, let's say we can turn 100 people into millionaires. Well, that's $100 million of financial power that we can put behind the initiatives, the change that we want to see in the world. So I believe for me, this is a piece of everything I'll be doing for the rest of my life, is teaching in this way. But on the flip side, I've always sort of had this concept of being of service. So when I was in the music business, the first jobs that I had, even though I wanted to be in front of the cameras, was to actually be behind the scenes as the producer. And so for me, it was about providing the highest level of service. So somebody needed 3 song ideas, you give them 9, right? And then once I was able to get in front of the cameras and was starting to tour, I would listen to feedback from audiences, especially when I was overseas, and they say, well, God, you know, artists will come from overseas and they'll get on stage and they'll do a backing track and they'll be out of here in 30 minutes. Like, you know, it's God's gift to mankind that they got on a plane to come over and perform for us. And so for me, in that spirit of service, I spent the extra money to bring the band out, and we would play 2-hour, 3-hour, in some cases, you know, marathons, 6-hour sets. And so people could understand Ryan's about delivering a higher level of service. And so I started to get a lot of folks that would say, hey, Ryan, you know, I want to make it in the music business. And the music business is really sort of tied to, let's say, just a little bit of serendipity. You're not able to just say, if I make a song and I put this much money behind it, it's going to go. If that was the case, everybody would have a hit. So the way that I can give back in a way that is objectively valuable is really twofold. Number one, success really happens at the speed of communication. So what we do at Superphone is we put a layer of technology on text messaging and a layer of technology over our phones, which allows me, currently I'm on text with more than 130,000 people. I've had those conversations, but it's not just about the text, it's also about the ability to layer that on a phone system and to do it personally. We've all heard about call centers. You call up Delta Airlines or you call up somewhere, there's call centers and they're redirecting your call somewhere, or you're talking to a robot. My belief, and the belief that we have at Superphone, and the reason why we have a patent on some of the technology that we're building for automated digital conversation management, is because my belief is that when we can unlock, like if I was to ask you right now, how many contacts do you have in your phone? You might not know offhand. But if I gave you your phone and you scrolled all the way to the bottom and you said, oh, well, I've got 300 contacts, 500 contacts, 750, 1,000 contacts, The reality is you're likely only engaging with maybe 3% of those contacts, right? Because we like to keep our circle small. So what I'm doing at Superphone is my way of being of service, not subjectively, because if someone doesn't like my music, then I can't really serve them.
Being
Go
of
ahead.
service.
Yes.
That's what's next. That's what
That's
you're going to continue
That's
doing.
what drives what I'm doing. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Ryan.
Thanks, Rosemary. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
I'm Diane Brady. I am here with will.i.am, the Renaissance man, musician, producer. Will, I want to talk about the formula, which just dropped. And of course, you had this terrific orchestral version yesterday at the Formula One in Miami. You pitched them on this program. So let's just start with that. Talk about this Global Artists in Residence program you pitched. And thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've been playing the F1 circuit since the first race in Singapore back in 2008. That was the first time I played the F1 circuit. And I really, truly fell in love with the sport. I met Lewis back in 2007. And that was like, at the time, I didn't understand truly the depth of Formula One on the engineering side and just how the athlete, the driver, and the engineers worked so closely together, competing. I played pole position on the video game in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
But falling in love with the sport, all the principles that make the sport happen, happened post 2008, 9. And so playing all of these shows, flying to Azerbaijan, flying to, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Mexico, Austin, last year in Miami, I realized that, there's two things happening in the Formula One realm. That there's the race, obviously, and then there's the concerts that happen that rarely, probably never, get broadcast around the world. There's like a local celebration, and then you have the third thing, which is the parties after the race. And so all this activity, I wanted to connect like a through line where like an album, a song, video, celebrating the sport, celebrating the engineers, celebrating the drivers. And that's the formula, the first installment for a year-long program.
This program, is it going to be you in collaboration with other artists? I know the formula is with Lil Wayne. You're essentially, in addition to being the sort of musical center here, you're also curating, are you not, other artists?
Yeah, so I have some special guests that are going to come throughout the year. I don't want to reveal them because they're, I don't want to lose the fizzle and punch when we reveal each artist as the artists come through. We have Lil Wayne kicking it off. I went to Prague to do the orchestral version. So for every song, there's about 3 to 4 orchestral versions of each record. And I'm going to start releasing the orchestral versions of the formula the next coming weeks. And that's going to end off the formula on the next song that will come out top of July with an amazing artist that we have featured on it. And that will take us all the way to the end of the year. Like these releases, songs, videos, art, merchandise. And it's really, really exciting. I pitched this concept to Stefano at Harvard. So I went to Mexico.
Harvard. Why Harvard?
So we played Singapore, and then I went to Harvard Business School. I attend Harvard Business School, and then I have Harvard Business School gives you 3 days off. You can take 3 days off for your businesses. So I had a meeting in Mexico with Stefano, the CEO of F1, and then he and I were on a track. We did this track parade, and then I had this vision when I was on the track of this artist in residency concept, and then we planned to meet up at Harvard because he was speaking at Harvard while I was attending as a student last year.
This is
And
the
so I was like, you know
executive
what?
MBA program, or what were you doing at Harvard?
I'm a part of the OPM,
Okay.
the
Okay.
Owners President's Management
Okay.
program at
Yep.
Harvard Business School. I went back last year. I was like, you know what? I've accomplished a lot in music. I'm starting my new company, FYI, .ai, and I want to go back to college. I want to go to business school. I want to network with other business owners. I'm a founder of the company. Put the company together, funded it, found the team, collaborated with my co-founder, CTO Sunil. But I want to learn more. I want to network. So I went there, and I graduate in 2024. But while I was there last year, Stefano was speaking. So I was like, oh, I just met with Stefano in Mexico. Let me go and pitch him this idea after his class. And so here we are. He loved the vision, gave me the green light to make it happen. And it's a great collaboration, a great partnership. Stefano is an amazing CEO. And I love the growth of F1 since he's been the F1 there. I mean, the CEO at F1.
It's interesting because I know you're going to be touring with the Black Eyed Peas again. This is your first solo album, I believe, in a decade. Is that right? The one that will come out in the fall. And now you've got FYI.ai. When you think about the portfolio of will.i.am, what's the balance that you want to achieve? Because you also still are very much a technologist as well.
So the balance, I don't have to make music like I used to make music for business anymore. I don't know if I want to make music for business like I used to in the past. I'll still make music for therapy, letting out joys, letting out my excitement and concerns about the world. But as far as writing songs to compete from a business aspect, I did that the majority of all of my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And we did a really good job doing that. Black Eyed Peas is a family. We'll always make music as a friendship and bond. But as far as what I want to do the rest of my life in business, it's FYI. It's solving problems with technology and putting teams together, because that work is synonymous with the work that I do philanthropically. Telling kids, teaching kids, encouraging kids in inner cities that reflect the ones that I come from, to go down the path of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Apply yourself with these skill sets and solve tomorrow's problems. And if I'm not doing that, then that's kind of hypocritical, right? If I'm off doing things that don't reflect that, then I have to practice what I preach. And I really, truly believe that is the path that we inner city kids should aim ourselves to do. And that is to solve once and for all, be the ones that solve our own problems with today's amazing tools and technology.
Talk a little bit about FYI.ai. I think of it as sort of Web3. What's the vision there, and how is going to Harvard, has that helped to hone the vision?
Going to Harvard, you can never learn enough. And so it's a humbling experience after having amazing success, ginormous success in music. You can't assume just because you had success in one realm that you're going to have success in another realm just because you were successful. That's an arrogant approach. So going to Harvard is like, one, I never thought in my life growing up that I would be able to go to Harvard. So now I'm there and achieving something that I never thought was possible when I was in junior high school and high school. And I'm going there to learn business after I had success in another business. And that's a humbling experience. And the professors are giving me the information, giving me perspective that I'm going to need, not now, but eventually. And the students, my classmates, hearing from them their business hurdles and the things that they had to overcome. I have amazing classmates that have awesome companies. And as I'm trying to start my company, FYI, to solve a problem that I see in music and all creatives, there has never been a communication platform made for creatives to run their business. We work off of WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
We work off of 5 tools just to do work. We need a Dropbox, a WeTransfer, a Messenger, email, calendar, and sometimes Zoom just to get work done. That means your conversations are happening in the comment section in a Dropbox file, or they're happening on email, but sometimes they're happening where you need to send a large file on WeTransfer on email, but then they're happening on text. Your workflow is all over the place. Your team communications is all over the place. Your IP is compromised. Your copyrights, your intellectual property is all compromised when your stuff is spread out all over the place. So we wanted to have a central tool with generative AI baked in the core of it, so you can focus your ideas with you and your team and supercharge your creativity and strategy with artificial intelligence. That's the whole vision of FYI.ai. The name of the company is what the product does. Focus your ideas with AI, FYI.ai.
You know, it's interesting when you think about let's get back to the Formula One, and is part of what attracts you to that, the technology of it, or is it just the racing? I mean, because I think of the work you've done with Dean Kamen, a lot about students and getting them basically entranced with technology and frankly making it as sexy as, music.
Yeah, so if you were to take all the engineers that are in the pit and all the work that's gone into making that car not only beautiful but aerodynamic, and all the strategy and configuration to have the weight distribution in a way to where it's lightning fast. That's a team. And then you have a fearless pilot that's driving that, risking their lives on a track.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about, the adults that are doing that. And I see how beautiful that is with the kids, and how they're a mirror of what's happening in a professional setting, what the kids are doing in a learning setting at such a tender age, working with robotics.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's teamwork, it's co-opetition, and engineering at its basic with the robotics at the age the kids are, but then at its advance with what's happening in the pit with F1. It's like science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. If there was a sport or a realm in culture that is the perfect example and the metaphor of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, it's F1.
And now
the
music.
art with the car, the beauty of the car, and I love cars. I love building them. I love doing concept cars. I built 6 cars in my life. Whenever I find some money to play with success for music, I go out and build a car. I've been doing that for the past 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just for me, it's like as a symbol of yay, as a symbol of like, let's do it. Let's make something where only one exists. In a world where there's abundance, we're swimming in abundance of information, swimming in abundance of access to things that people take for granted. Working with teams and building one-off concepts, that's luxury. And I always dreamt of doing that growing up, and seeing the kids working with these robots really reminds me of F1. And that's why I love F1 so much. It's like the best sport, collaborative, mind expansion sport there is.
So let me ask one other question, which is where do the Black Eyed Peas fit into this? I don't know if they're going to be involved in your F1, artists in residence, but since Fergie left, I know you've done you've had Shakira, others come in. Is the Black Eyed Peas always going to be a part of your life as a performer, as a musician going forward?
Black Eyed Peas is my family. That's my pod. I don't want to get like dad joke and corny, but we're peas in a pod.
Mm-hmm.
We started off as 3 And while we were that trio, we always worked with female singers.
Yep.
From Kim Hill to Macy Gray to Estero to Debbie Nova to Fergie to Shakira. We always worked with now J. Ray Soul. We always worked with female singers. But at the core, the trio, the three amigos, is me, App, and Taboo, and we're family. We're brothers. We will always travel the world and sing the songs that people have selected to be the soundtracks to their lives. And it's a blessing. So you never abandon that. No matter how, how big FYI gets, there's always going to be Black Eyed Peas tours. There's always going to be Black Eyed Peas music, because that's therapy. It's what bonds me and my best friends, my stability, my rock, my anchor. And we keep each other down. We hold each other up, and we bro hugs all day.
I can't think of a better foundation for innovation than that. So thanks for joining us, Will, and good luck with your program. Look forward to seeing what comes next.
Thank you so much. Thanks for asking questions about FYI and my passion for the company. Thanks for asking questions on F1 and my passion for the sport, and the connection between all that stuff. I only like to do things that reflect, my purpose, and my purpose is the work that I do at I Am Angel. So F1 is like a mirror of that. FYI is like the purpose on why. And Black Eyed Peas is just the vehicle that got me out of the ghetto to go back to my neighborhood to take care of the people in my community.
Great.
Thank you.
Of course. Look forward to continuing the conversation. More great music to come. Thanks, Will.